All right, this gets pretty strange here. New calls among some of the Republican Party to repeal and replace Obamacare. The thinking being, the faster you do it, the better. Take a look.
There's roughly 3,000 counties in America. Well, there's 1,022 counties that only have one insurance plan now. So it's collapsing upon itself. So we have to transform this, and we're going to be able to do it. Watch this month, and you're going to see it start moving.
All right, joined now by Congressman Mark Sanford, Republican of the state of South Carolina. Congressman, the one thing I hear on this issue, important though it is, and I'm sure meaningfully important to so many Republicans, it's not as important as tax cuts. It's not as important to goosing this economy, giving it a pickup because things are slowing down. And this should not be the signature lead-off event for Republicans. What do you think?
Well, like it or not, I think it's going to be. You know, we've already passed, in essence, a vehicle that allows for this to move forward. I think it's tied to, you know, the first crack at the budget. I think that the tax cut will come later. So I think we can have a debate about whether it should or shouldn't be there, but I think it's what's going to be.
Does it trouble you in that respect that, you know, you can't second-guess this stuff now, I understand, but it has gotten a lot more complicated, a lot more involved, a lot more weighty than I think even Republican advocates would have thought. Maybe the president has added that confusion, sir, by saying, look, I think we should repeal and replace close to simultaneously, but I am getting a sense that some are having regrets. Again, too little, too late, to your point, but do you worry that tax cuts are getting pushed off, maybe significantly so?
I don't think so. You know, I was just in a meeting a few moments ago at what's called the RSC, the Republican Study Committee, and the Vice President came by and visited with us at lunch here after his tie-breaking vote over on the Senate side. And what he promised was both, that you're going to see the administration move forcefully, not just with repeal and replace with regard to Obamacare, but with tax cuts as well. And that his view was that the tax cuts were absolutely integral to seeing the kind of economic growth that the administration wanted to see, that was important to jobs and economy, and was ultimately important to a balanced budget.
I'm wondering if you had to time it, how would it go? I mean, what is the time frame you and your colleagues are working under to get this stuff done?
My sense is late February, early March, you're going to see something move with regard to Obamacare. Certainly the repeal part, I think to your point, the replace question is much more delicate politically. I think of all the issues our office, for instance, has gotten calls on here lately, it's been about the issue of replace. Are you going to repeal and not replace? Are you going to repeal but replace but with what? There are, in fact, a group of demonstrators in front of my office right now back home in South Carolina, and that's the case with a lot of other congressional districts across this country. So, again, you're dead on. It is a delicate issue, but I think that that's the train that's left the station, that it's going to be dealt with in terms of sequence based on the reconciliation package that's moving forward.
Well, what are they demonstrating against, Congressman? I mean, it's not like McClintock, right, when he had a hearing or an information session in California, his California district, and a lot of protesters showed up. I mean, what do they say? What do they do?
Well, I mean, it's to a degree the kitchen sink, and so it's everything from immigration ban, what comes next there, is it constitutional, is it not constitutional, all those kinds of questions they're throwing into the fray, as well as the issue of Obamacare, guns, go down, again, it's a laundry list that I've already heard from that came up just, again, a few moments ago, and it's still going on right now back in Mount Pleasant.
Do you believe, Congressman, that whatever happens, for example, on tax cuts, that they be revenue neutral, that they be paid for? One idea that's come up is a border tax, which effectively would raise $1 trillion or more over 10 years, enough to pay for whatever you guys want to do on that front. I don't know whether you have an issue with paying for a tax cut with a tax hike, but your thoughts on that?
A group of us are meeting with Kevin Brady, who's chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, this afternoon on the very subject. It's something that's being advanced by the likes of Kevin and others. I'm still a bit suspicious. You know, it is something that's certainly practiced in about 160 other countries in the form of a VAT.
Right.
But and this is a little bit different than a VAT. But it smells, feels, and in many cases is much similar. I mean, it's not too far apart. And as such, it represents a hidden tax on the American public. And I think we should be careful about giving in one hand and taking from the other.
finally, sir, there's a money manager, big money manager out there, doesn't normally talk to the press. I'll save you a lot of the boring details because, as you know, that's where I live. But the gist of his arguments was, you know, Wall Street is getting excited about something that could be counterproductive. That whatever you think of getting regulations cut, whatever you think of tax cuts, they're going to be offset by a very protectionist tone in Washington and a protectionist president. And that ends up never being good for the economy, never being good for stocks. And he says, watch out. What do you say to that?
I agree with him. That's why I have reservations on, for instance, the border adjustment tax. You know, the port in Charleston, which I represent back home, does amazing export and import business. And an amazing number of jobs, for instance, just in the local area, much less the state and the southeast, are tied to imports and exports. The BMWs that are produced in Greenville, South Carolina, Spartanburg, South Carolina, do not stay in South Carolina. They go throughout the world. And so I think that this sort of protectionist sentiment that seems to be taking a little bit of hold would be disastrous in terms of the economy.
All right, Congressman, thank you very, very much.